Hey everybody, it's your favorite gentleman, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Today, you all are in for a treat. We have a very special guest of mine, Mr. Jack Alliweil, and this man is powerful. He has spent a lot of time as an actuary, and he's here on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show to share with us how to make better bets. His latest book. This is phenomenal, and this is what we need to hear, and this is how we are getting to a better place. And he's going to share some tidbits, some tea, some secrets that we all need in our lives to keep in our back pocket and stay ready to make the transition as we transition to a better life. This pandemic has been absolutely crazy, and I'm just jamming out to this beat. I love this beat, actually, by the way, but here we go. Hey everybody, it's your favorite gentleman, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and we are coming to the stage where I am bringing you Mr. Jack Alliweil. He's very, very passionate about personal finance and specifically house hacking and other real estate endeavors. My favorite topic to talk about, and this is to help people. He loves helping people and live a more free life. And we're going to talk about his most recent book, How to Make Better Bets. And so help me welcome to the stage the incredible, amazing Mr. Jack Alliweil. Welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Marcus. How are you?
Fantastic.
You sure know how to talk somebody up, so this is good.
You did it all, man. You did all the work. I am just here to enjoy and to dive in deep with you and ask some questions that are thought-provoking and to help us do better financially. Because 2020 was crazy. That was a crazy nuts year. And you survived. You're one of the very few people that survived it and are here to help and give back through your book that you wrote. But first off, I want to ask this one very important question. What is it that you do every single day that really sets the tone for your day? Because successful people have daily habits that they do day in and day out. What is your daily habit?
So my day job right now is as an actuary, and part of becoming a fully credentialed actuary is passing a very long road of exams. And there were 8 exams I had to pass over the last 12 years. It was a very bumpy road. And one thing that I took from the exams was I started journaling in the mornings. And I do a little bit of a gratitude practice, saying what I'm grateful for each day. And then I kind of write down, I normally have a 100-day goal that I kind of say okay, in 99 days, I will do this. And then I normally try to come up with 3, micro goals or daily goals that will help me get to that bigger goal. And so journaling has been a big key to at least my recent endeavors.
So journaling helps you build up. So you make those micro goals that eventually work up to you achieving the bigger goal. Is that it?
Absolutely. I mean, just for example, this is part of one of my goals to reach out to 100 different podcasts. And so one of my goals was just to reach out to 2 different research and reach out to at least 2 a day. And so yeah.
And it worked. It worked. It worked, y'all. So that's dope. And that makes sense. What is specifically, what is an actuary? Tell us about that.
So they oftentimes specialize in, I guess you could say, managing risk. A lot of times it involves uncertainty and future cash flows. And actuaries are also very good at discounting those future cash flows using certain, discount rates seen in the markets. But a lot of actuaries are employed by insurance companies, and we're kind of like glorified budgeters, or and similar to like a bookie at a sports book. We're kind of a reserve in its purest sense is the present value of money going out minus the present value of money coming in. So if you have a car you want to buy in 24 months, how do you like set aside money each month to reserve for that expense coming up? And that's kind of what actuaries do a lot in terms of reserving for insurance companies and making sure they have enough money in reserves to pay out future claims.
So you manage risk. You manage the risk of looking at, hey, you have a 62-year-old member that pays a monthly premium on their insurance policy, and you make sure that money is allocated to pay out their 100,000 or 200,000 life insurance policy at the end of their potential life, and that money is set aside for them.
Yeah, I mean, like a pricing actuary would go through a lot of mortality tables and other sort of risk characteristics to figure out what that person should be paying in premiums for, X amount of death benefit. And then a valuation actuary would go and say, okay, this is the amount we should be reserving for this policy at any given time.
So you're the person is why my premiums went up. You're that guy.
I don't know about that, Marcus, but
no problem. Thank you for sharing that with us, and that's important. So this is a man that you manage risk. You help the company make sure that they're on track and doing the right thing by its customers is one aspect, and you're making sure that they're charging the right amount. Tell us what inspired your book. What made you write the book? And what model is it based off of? Are you the character in the book?
So I know you mentioned like COVID being like a kind of a reset for a lot of people and being like a down point in many. And I feel like I kind of had my COVID experience actually back in 2016. I had moved to Charlotte in 2015 from Michigan, and I felt like I was losing balance in my life, and I actually lost my job at the end of 2016. And when that happened, luckily I had cheap housing, but I decided to take a trip, and I called it my roots trip. And I went to see where my grandparents grew up in Poland and Hungary, and I oddly enough actually met my wife in Vienna on that trip. Hard to believe, but one thing that losing my job helped me see is that I needed to make my life more robust. And one thing I started doing a lot was reading. And it was actually outside of Krakow at the Auschwitz concentration camp where I started reading a lot about World War II. And growing up, I did not really read much. So it was kind of a new thing for me. And I've kind of just kept reading lots and lots ever since that trip. And so the World War II books morphed into economics books and morphed into a lot of soccer books. And I really love soccer. And a couple of the books I read were kind of the intersection of money and soccer, Soccernomics. And there's a book called Money and Soccer. And one of the professors at the University of Michigan kinesiology department, Professor Szymanski, actually was co-author in those books. And I had reached out to him, and he actually gave me some of his sources for some of the studies in the books. And one that really caught my eye was a study he did trying to figure out what countries use their resources the best. And the way they looked at this was they kind of looked at three factors. One was GDP per capita. One was the population size of the country. And then the third was the number of international appearances that country had participated in. And they were trying to do what we call like a regression. So you put those three variables in, let's say if Croatia's playing Brazil, and it would spit out some predicted goal differential. And they were trying to answer, well, what countries overshoot their predicted goal differential? And then in my mind, I thought, well, if you could just take it one step further and say, okay, so for all the teams that are, predicted to get or to win by 0.5 or 0.6 goals, how often do they actually win versus tie versus lose? Because then you could put that into a model, and basically it would give you some probabilities that you could then go compare at a sports book, like in Las Vegas. And that's kind of what came to be Make Better Bets. And it was an Excel model that I had constructed, and it was it's called Visual Basic. It's kind of like the Excel language, the programming language to automate a lot of manual tasks in Excel. And that's kind of what I had learned a lot of in my first actuary job back in 2013. So it was kind of like an intersection of my actuarial background and my love for soccer. And I ended up, we actually ended up betting. France was one of the teams we had bet to win it all, but most of the bets we had made were either teams to get out of their group or not get out of the group. And the way the World Cup is constructed is there's 8 groups of 4, and each group of 4 you play the other 3 teams once. So we were making a lot of bets on Mexico getting out of their group, or Iran not to get out of their group. Things like that were more the types of bets we were making. But basically, if our model thought Mexico was getting out of their group, meaning they would finish in either the first or second spot in their group, if we had them getting out, let's say 50% of the time, a fair bet would be 1-to-1, meaning if you bet $1, you should get your original dollar back plus another dollar. But let's say Las Vegas was offering, for every dollar you bet, maybe they were offering $1.20. So we would have deemed that a good bet, and we might have put some money on that. Now, the thing that really, I guess, spurred the making of the book was that we ended up losing a little money, and I wanted to know, where did we go wrong? So that was kind of the post analysis that went into this book. And so we had some really exciting wins, but ended up down a little bit. And it was kind of the post analysis and the allocation process that I learned a lot from, and hopefully we can improve on it going forward.
So the book helps people make better bets in terms of overall bets in life, or specific industries like soccer or horse racing?
This book was really for soccer. It is. I try to sprinkle in some more qualitative things, like just stories from my Europe trip and things that led to the development of this model. And
do you have a copy of the book with you?
I do.
Let the world see that. Make Better Bets.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like.
Yeah. The subtitle is called, or says, An Actuary's Quest to Bet the Russian 2018 FIFA World Cup with Excel. But a lot of these same tactics, I guess, I've used in a lot of areas of my life.
So who's the ideal customer for the book? Is it a gambler? Like if I have a chronic gambling problem?
I mean, a chronic gambling addict would probably just want to be told what to bet on.
Gotcha.
So they might, but I could see a lot of sports analytics guys, people that are interested in just looking at things a little differently and with a little more numbers. And I think, really, I wrote the book thinking this is something I would have wanted to have read when I was younger. And I hope some young, people that like math or computers and sports would read this and hopefully be inspired to do something along these same lines.
Where have you seen benefit to knowing what you know, being an actuary, and knowing and experiencing those different experiences with soccer, being a soccer fanatic yourself? What other areas could those same principles be applied to other areas of my life?
Absolutely. Just all the reading I've done and analysis. I've gotten very into Bitcoin. I guess we're still going to see how that unfolds, but I've applied it a lot to analyzing potential rental properties. And and part of when I lost my job, that was another thing that came from losing my job was I said, as soon as I got another job, I was going to get a house and rent out the rooms, be a little more frugal, and create a bit more of a robust life for myself, so that I was not going to get put in that position again, losing my job like that.
Makes sense. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We got to pay some bills, y'all. We'll be right back.
Are you a local business looking to offer your customers easy access to cash without having to travel miles? We're here to help. At Norman Legacy Investments, we provide free ATMs with free installation that provide a suitable investment for your business. Even better, we offer you some profit sharing and handle everything from start to finish. Just reach out to us today to schedule a free consultation.
We are back to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and we are here with Jack Alliweil and his book, Make Better Bets. This book is his experience over time that he's amassed and his vast knowledge in making better bets, in specifically soccer against the Russians and betting against the soccer teams. But you can take these aspects and use them in any area of business. And so he's used it in his investing in real estate and house hacking. Tell us, what is house hacking? You mentioned that in the book. What and how has that benefited you in the long run?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so I guess I would define house hacking as using your primary resident to offset your living expense. And in a very favorable scenario, one could actually make money off their primary resident, where you're basically living for free, potentially, or at least dramatically reduce your living expense. And my house hacking experience started in 2017. I ended up buying a house that was about to go into foreclosure, 4 bedrooms, and I ended up renting out 3 rooms. And that the amount of freedom that enabled me cannot be understated. I was able to save so much money, and part of it allowed me to pursue more passion projects, which turned into Make Better Bets, and also probably contributed a lot to my marriage, my long distance relationship at the time, maintaining course, I guess, because it basically allowed me to take a lot of vacations over there, and work remotely for a little bit and still collect rents from the house hack.
Makes sense.
And the house hack really gives you like a crash course into landlording. So I started reading a lot of real estate books after that, and we're now up to 13 units. So it's really quite remarkable how much just reading has helped.
I love that. What is your favorite part? What's your favorite chapter in the book?
My favorite chapter in the book is probably so the picture I paint when I take the money out of the bank to go place these bets. Like it's one thing to say like you're confident, like, picking a certain stock or something, but until you actually put your money, until you have skin in the game, it's not really real. But when I was placing bets for my brother and my dad wanted to put some money in too. So I got $10,000 out of the bank, and I never held that much cash in my hands. And it really made me start to think, though, when I was about to go place the bets, like, how sure am I really? And like, I started to think about all the missing pieces that I would have liked to incorporate, such as player salaries. That was one thing I didn't incorporate in the model. And I know it's a very strong indicator, but I was just having trouble finding player salaries that were reliable. And you think it would be somewhat easy, but it's not always easy to go find a player salary in like certain like Polish players or the African players, it's not always super easy to find. So I was thinking about, incorporating player salaries, but I didn't have player salaries. All I had was the FIFA rankings, and I did a lot of home field advantage analysis. So,
right. Did you say $10,000?
I did.
Oh my God.
6,000 was mine, right? And my dad and brother put in some play money,
some betting money, some gambling money. What did you say you bank at? No, I'm just kidding. Don't tell me. Do not tell me where you bank at. But that's huge. So did you win money on that bet?
So overall, we actually were down a little bit, and that's why when and part of what I like, I like analyzing whether it's good or bad, and I probably analyzed it a lot more that we lost. But there was a book I had read I'd really recommend it. It's by Annie Duke. She's a former professional poker player. It's called Thinking in Bets. And it's about the idea of separating your decision from the result. Because just because you took your car, ran through a red light with cars whipping by you, and you get safely to the other side does not mean you made a good decision to run that red light. So she's very about separating the decision from the result. And I don't know if I would have analyzed it all that much, because it's like human nature. Like a lot of people just, if I were to ask you, what's the best decision you made this last year? You'd probably say something that turned out something that had a favorable outcome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You probably wouldn't say, but you could have made a really good decision and just had a poor result.
That burrito I had last night. Yeah, that's a bad decision all day long, no matter who you are.
Yeah, but
that makes sense.
What I in this post analysis, and hopefully it was kind of a exercise in capital allocation and how sure was I really in each bet, and because we ended up making, I think it was like around 30 or 40 bets, somewhere in that range, over the whole World Cup. So, but it was a real lot of fun, and luckily now I've made it up in book sales, the money that I lost.
That's always a win. Always a win. What books are you reading now?
So right now, my brother and we actually started a podcast called the Brothers on Books podcast. We've been doing it for a little over a year, and we just finished reading a book called Wall Street Bets, which is about the Reddit group that involved in like the GameStop short squeeze and all that. But the actual book wasn't really about that. It was about kind of I would say, macro backdrop that kind of spurs on people to make bets like this on Wall Street Bets. And then they call it like loss porn, where they are posting like these huge losses. And this so the creator of Wall Street Bets kind of tries to paint a picture of this community and what events have shaped them. But our book we're reading right now is called On Grand Strategy by John Lewis Gaddis. And he's a professor at Yale. And he talks a lot about just strategy throughout like the Roman Empire. And I'm only halfway through, but I think he stops around like World War II. But yeah, we read a lot of nonfiction on that podcast. Makes
sense. What's the next big bet? What's the next big bet that you guys are taking now? What's up and coming? What should I be putting my money on?
So I don't really have a specific bet for you right now, but I'll be posting for the Qatar 2022 World Cup and this is I think it's the first World Cup that they moved to the winter because Qatar's so hot. They didn't think it was safe for the players to play in, because the World Cup is normally goes from like June to July, but this World Cup's going to be kicking off in November. So I have 10, 11 months to prepare for that. And we're hoping to incorporate player salaries a lot more in this model.
Why is player salary so important?
So one thing we kind of take, I mean, I don't know if we take it for granted, but like in America, our sports leagues are actually pretty socialistic. Like the teams kind of share, like there's revenue sharing. But in a lot of the European and outside of North America, a lot of those leagues are actually more capitalistic, I would say. They're more dog eat dog. Anyone can like start up a soccer club and work. And like England has like many different levels. You have like 20 teams in the first division, I think 20 teams in the second division, and they have what are called relegation and promotion, where if you're in the top league, but you finish in the bottom three, you actually go down to the lower league. So, but these teams do not have a salary cap per se, like they do in a lot of the American leagues. So you can pay these players crazy amounts of money. And the thought is that, well, if you're really good, then you would get paid more money. But like in a lot of the American leagues, you might get paid more, but it's not as obvious because of the salary caps, I would say. Because like I would probably argue that LeBron James is probably one of the
best players alive.
most underpaid. Because if they were to remove that salary cap, he's probably worth a lot more than what they're paying him.
That makes sense. So it's an easy way to determine who are the best players are, because they have no limit on their cap. So it's easier for you to say, hey, they're paying this player on this team this amount of money that is in excess of everybody else. So it's probably a safer bet to assume they're gonna win. Is that
one of the studies that Professor Szymanski did in one of his books was they looked at the English Premier League and basically just looked at the salaries across the 20 teams, and it was very close. Like the salaries of the teams for the final rankings, it was very close. And he thought it was like, I think they said like 90% predictive in terms of the overall standings. I mean, it doesn't really say it probably, I don't know what that says about the coaches exactly, but I mean, you got to be able to manage the egos if those teams, but basically it's another predictive tool. You could say like, if your average starting 11 players make, I don't know, $10 million more than the other team, maybe that's good for a half a goal a game as an advantage. And then we could use that to transform into a probability and then use that to bet.
Makes sense. How can my audience connect with you? How can my audience learn more from you and grow with you and continue to grow with you as you continue to put out data and put out great information such as your book?
Sure. So my books are on Amazon. I have a blog called Fired to Fire. I do a lot of personal finance, do a lot of outlines and summaries of books I read, and as well as comment and post on sports betting if it's in that season. And I'm also big on making personal balance sheets, so I do a lot of that at Fired to Fire. And then of course there's the podcast now, the Brothers on Books podcast. So that's and that's on all the major platforms and on YouTube. So that's where they can find me. And I think I'm the only Jack Alliweil on LinkedIn. So I guess if they want a direct link.
Yeah, you're it. You're the man. It was very easy to find you. Makes sense. Mr. Jack, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being on the Gentleman Style Podcast show. This is incredible, and this is what we need to know. This is how we can make better bets and better decisions in our life. And so y'all go check him out. Subscribe. So we can make better decisions and we can see what the next cryptocurrency maybe Jack's doing, so we can follow him on that trend when he announces it. If he announces it, he may want to spill the tea on that down the road. So you never know. Check him out and get the book. It's on Amazon and wherever you can get your copy of your book. Make better bets. Mr. Jack, I want to say thank you, sir. Appreciate you for what you do and what you're doing. It is absolutely necessary and it is impactful. What you're doing is you are changing the way we think and the way we need to think, because it's how we're going to make it into the next season. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for what you do.
Thanks so much, Marcus. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Pleasure is all mine. And I want to say thank you all, my audience, for tuning in to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And I hope this message has been helpful. I hope this has helped you make better decisions. And if you're not good at making better decisions, I know I'm not. Get the book. Get the book and get the recipe and get the secret sauce that Jack and his brother uses to make better decisions. And that's what's made him a huge success now with house hacking and actuarial, and moving on to making better decisions and having $10,000 in the bank, y'all. That's money in the bank. That wasn't Play-Doh money. That wasn't Monopoly money. That was real cash. Like I always end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your families, and always, always take care of business. This is Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, your host, and Mr. Jack Alliweil signing off. Love you guys.